case has confused me about justice in America. Because of the rules that are made to hide information from court cases and the fact that you can make things up. Coca-Cola's lawyers attacked my family, threw out all sorts of lies about their lives, that they weren't working, they didn't have their own home, any kind of mud that they could find. What makes me the angriest about this whole experience is the fact that Coca-Cola went all through my life. They demanded all sorts of paperwork, even 3 years of income tax, and my husband's crisis center records where he had counseling, and they gave no paperwork on the accident or anything else that we asked for. And we were open and honest and gave everything to prove my case, and it did. And all they did was bring lies and mistruths into it. Coca-Cola has stolen my peace of mind. And every day I remind myself of my blessings so I can get through the pain of the day.
It might seem unpatriotic or even sacrilegious to say anything negative about Coca-Cola, especially when this company, one of America's most recognized brands in the world, the epitome of the American spirit and American business, doesn't live up to the high esteem they spend so much money promoting. From their humble beginnings 125 years ago, Coke has evolved from one product, Coca-Cola, to more than 500 brands in 2012. They've grown from selling a modest 9 drinks a day in 1886 to 1.8 billion a day. And they've expanded from one city in one country to availability in more than 200 countries around the world. The history of Coca-Cola is a story of special moments, times with family and friends and special occasions when Coke was naturally there. Every person who drinks a Coca-Cola enjoys a moment of refreshment and shares in an experience that millions of others have savored, because we all know that things go better with Coke. And all of these individual experiences combined have created a worldwide phenomenon, a truly global brand that plays its own small part on the world stage. So it might seem unbelievable that such an iconic American brand with such a stellar record of community spirit and giving to programs such as reaching out to American veterans and giving away $26 million in grants to 85 community organizations just during the first quarter of 2012 would not do the right thing when one of their Coca-Cola delivery trucks ran into and severely injured an outstanding community leader and mother, Deborah Kropp. Today, the Insider Exclusive goes behind the headlines in Everything Does Not Go Better with Coke, Deborah Kropp's story, to examine how John Phillips, founder of the law offices of John Phillips, successfully represented Deborah against Coca-Cola when they fought tooth and nail, refusing to take responsibility for the severe injuries they caused her. On July 20th, 2007, Deborah Kropp was traveling home from helping her quadriplegic brother, as she did every day. Deborah had been there every day helping him since they lost their mother in 2006. A few hundred feet from her Gainesville, Florida home, she slowed down to pull off the road at her rural mailbox, as she did every day. And that's where this tragic Coca-Cola story began. Because at the same time and at the same place, Coca-Cola, which was understaffed, according to its own employees, relied on a warehouse worker with a less than stellar driving record and several felony convictions to deliver their product on that fateful day in July in an attempt to meet its daily 1.8 billion servings per day. Worse yet, Coca-Cola's truck had a loose toolbox in the passenger compartment, so if the driver had to make a sudden stop for a child, an animal, or someone stopping to get their mail, like Deborah, it was a recipe for disaster. And that's exactly what happened. The loose toolbox rocketed onto the truck's accelerator, sending the truck out of control and slamming into the rear passenger side of Deborah's Ford Mustang, and it sent her airborne. Coca-Cola sent out its representatives to the scene. No pictures were taken and no statements were given. And unbelievably, Coke told Deborah it was not responsible for her injuries, leaving her to pay her medical bills all by herself. Coke failed to take pictures of its vehicle, fearing it would tell a story that was very unfavorable. In fact, Coke denied any records of any repair bills that proved the damage when they finally disclosed a $14,000 repair bill, which had been asked for years before. 3 surgeries and over $250,000 of medical bills later, with 2 more surgeries to go, Deborah approached trial. After a week of trial, the jury awarded Deborah over $1 million. Finally, Coke's victimization of her was recognized by a jury of her peers, Coca-Cola drinkers like you and me. Coke never apologized, and yet they used unlimited resources to blame the victim, Deborah Kropp, a fellow American community leader and a mother. You might think that such an iconic American brand with such a stellar record of community spirit and giving millions of dollars to community organizations would stand up and help the people they hurt. But in this case, they failed to do so. The Insider exclusive investigative series and reporting on this actual true courtroom case is sending a message to Coca-Cola and other corporations to do the right thing when they're responsible. And we hope you will share this story with your family, your friends, your neighbors, and community leaders in the hopes that Coca-Cola and others start walking their own talk. John Phillips' successful representation of Deborah Kropp has earned him the highest respect from citizens and lawyers alike as one of the best trial lawyers in Florida and in the nation. He has seen many innocent and hardworking people become victims in catastrophic accidents, and because of that, he is driven to fight for people who have been harmed by the willful or negligent actions of others. His goals, not only to get justice for his clients, but to make sure that all corporations respect people's lives and take responsibility for their negligent actions. This is the Insider exclusive, live from Gainesville, Florida. It is my great pleasure to introduce John Phillips to the show. Welcome to the show, John.
Thank you so much.
Tell our audience a little bit about your firm. What type of law do you practice?
Mainly personal injury, which a lot of people don't understand. It's everything from medical malpractice to somebody that's fallen at an establishment where there's liability on that establishment, and then the automobile wreck, whether it's trucking or somebody that was just careless for a moment and hit somebody's rear end.
You're licensed to practice not only in the state of Florida, but also Georgia and Alabama, right?
Correct, and we're adding Mississippi.
Are you?
I am. My grandfather and great-grandfather were lawyers, and I don't think we'll ever practice in Mississippi, but it's kind of a throwback to them.
Today we're here for the case of Debbie Kropp, and it's a David and Goliath story. It involved a major Fortune 500 company, Coca-Cola. Tell our audience a little bit about who Debbie is.
She's very near and dear to me. When I first met Debbie, I was at a very large firm here in Florida, and they were pushing me to take on this case of Debbie Kropp. I came in as a lawyer with having background, has worked for Coca-Cola, and they thought, okay, we're going to give you this case and we'll just get it settled. And I met Mr. and Mrs. Kropp and lived Mrs. Kropp's injuries through her, and saw what it was doing to their family. And it was tough to see. And money can't resolve these cases, but what you see is when the victim's being victimized by the defendant as well, it just makes it so much worse.
Yeah, tell us, our audience, a little bit about the facts of this case. What happened to Debbie?
Sure. Miss Kropp takes care of her incomplete quadriplegic brother. He works every day. He's not on disability. He gets up and is a graphic designer for a local college. And she was coming home from the daily routine of helping him get into his truck to go to work. And she was stopping off to get the mail and was rear-ended by a large-sized Coca-Cola pickup truck.
And you discovered what about the driver of this Coca-Cola truck?
The driver, besides not paying attention, and besides having an unsecured toolbox in the thing, so that if any hazard, whether small child, dog, whatever, crossed his path, that toolbox would hit the accelerator, making the accident worse, wasn't even employed by Coca-Cola to be a driver.
Right.
He was a warehouse worker, but because Coca-Cola, of all people or of all companies, was short-staffed, they tapped their warehouse worker on the shoulder and said, hey, come in. Never mind that the guy had multiple felony convictions.
Let's tell our audience exactly what happened to her medically.
Medically, she had originally what's kind of called a whiplash injury. You know, the biomechanics of the wreck indicate that, you know, her car was hit from the basically where the rear tire well, passenger side tire well is, and skid across. And Miss Kropp was hit there. Her car flew into the air and actually landed back on the dirt, throwing dirt on the ceiling. She was driving a Ford Mustang convertible with the top up. And so the biomechanics include the rear end essentially wreck, and then a front end wreck from when the car hit the ground.
All told, her medical bills ended up being about $250,000.
$266,000 and change. It was 3 surgeries. She actually needed 2 more surgeries.
Yeah. Now, let's talk about your legal strategy to get justice for Debbie. Okay. What were some of the issues they had to prove, and what were some of the challenges you had to overcome?
The main challenge was Ms. Kropp didn't know about how the process works, and we see it all the time. Under Florida law, there's no requirement to have bodily injury insurance. Obviously, Coca-Cola did.
Yeah.
And there's a requirement that your own insurance pays the first $10,000 in medical bills. It's called PIP, P-I-P, Personal Injury Protection. Well, Debbie didn't even know she had the PIP.
Yeah.
So she went to the emergency room the week of the wreck, and then because she'd always been very physically active and healthy, she just figured she'd get better. And so she didn't go to the doctor for 11 months, and Coca-Cola tried to use that against her and said, well, she really must not have been hurt.
Yeah.
When she stopped walking, she was somebody that walked miles and miles every day, and even her neighbors said, yeah, Debbie disappeared.
Yeah. One of the reasons we do these shows is to find out, you know, the inner workings of a case. Coca-Cola offered, remember her medical bills are $250,000, but Coca-Cola offered what to settle this case?
From the beginning, they offered in the $10,000, $20,000 range.
Yeah.
About 2 years later, after or right before her surgeries, they were at $35,000. The week before trial, they doubled their offer from $35,000 to $75,000, which wouldn't even cover in any aspect the $266,000 in medical bills.
Now, this case got kind of personal with you and the opposing counsel. What exactly was the opposing counsel doing that it got so personal between you and them?
He was very aggressive. Now, mind you, I've represented Coca-Cola before, and I generally know their litigation strategies. And with all defense attorneys, it is about, you know, throwing mud and trying to find conspiracy theories and defenses, whereas I'm basically the producer and director of a play of the story of my client's life. He was calling her a liar, you know, off the record. He would say, we know your client's fraudulent. And then he did the same to me and accused me to the judge of misrepresentation, which there was a transcript of the record. He didn't even check the transcript to find out that it was actually the judge that got the facts wrong, not me.
Yeah.
And made it very personal and was extremely litigious, had 5 other lawyers working on the file and trying to bury my relatively small office with paper and just made it contentious. And it's, you know, we're advocates, but when you get personal, it's not the way the law is meant. You know, justice is meant for a jury to decide fair and reasonable value, not for a lawyer to use gotcha tactics on the other lawyer.
Do you think that Coca-Cola was aware of the tactics that their law firm that was representing you in this case? They spent a lot of money trying to defeat this case. They were clearly the cause of the injuries, but do you think they were aware of what was going on?
They were. Before trial, when we were at the pretrial conference and when I was actually on the courthouse steps about to go in to get sanctions and got sanctions against Coca-Cola's counsel, it had gotten to the point where my relationship with the Coca-Cola attorney was so bad that in-house counsel for Coca-Cola said, you don't have to deal with him personally anymore. You could call me. Right. So they clearly knew that there was irreconcilable differences, as we all know. And so they clearly knew, and ultimately he got terminated from Coca-Cola, not just this case, but other cases because of his
conduct,
obstreperous activity, and just malicious conduct. It was just unnecessary to make this so personal.
We have your client with us today, and we're going to bring her on, Debbie. So let's do that right now.
Okay, excellent.
It is my great pleasure to introduce Debbie Kropp to the show. Welcome to the show, Debbie.
Thank you.
What an accident, huh?
Yes.
Take us back to that day when it happened. You were getting out of your car, check the mail, right?
I was approaching my mailbox.
Okay.
And I put my turn signal on a little early because there was a vehicle coming up pretty fast behind me. And then I put on my brakes and was slowing down. As I turned to see the edge of the road and make sure that I was hitting it right, I was rear-ended. I straightened my wheel, and then all of a sudden there was a side impact. It felt like an explosion. I looked in the rear view. I saw a big dust cloud, no truck, but a wheel and suspension rotating towards me, but it wasn't hitting me.
Right.
Then I jerked forward and my car nosedived, and I was getting ready for the car to flip when the rear end was slammed to the ground.
Yeah. Now, the driver admitted at the scene that it was clearly his fault, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
And later on, he recanted that, correct?
Correct. And in his testimony at trial and even during deposition, he said that she was stopped in the roadway sudden and unexpectedly, when he also said that he saw her from about 150 feet.
And the police were called, and their report said it was the driver's fault, right?
Yes.
So 40 feet of skid marks noted in the police report.
And one of the reasons we're doing this show is because here you have an iconic brand name, one that wants you to feel that, you know, you're in good hands, right?
Correct.
You know, they're at very momentous times in your life, landmark times, milestones, and that sort of thing. And yet, when they cause an injury, like they did to you, they spend hundreds of thousands of dollars not to pay you. That is amazing, isn't it?
Yes.
You are now on national TV. I want you to look right into the camera, and I want you to say to the American audience what you think of Coca-Cola.
That they're un-American. That there's no justice when it comes to Coca-Cola.
What is your opinion of your lawyer's work on this job?
John's wonderful. John's been there for me. He's part of my family now.
Well, fortunately, we're lucky enough to have lawyers like John.
Yes.
Who are willing to gamble time and money to get justice, because that's what it takes, right?
It does. And going against Coca-Cola is no easy feat. We were outnumbered in lawyers and paper and everything.
Yeah. How has your opinion of the justice system changed because of this case?
I don't believe in the justice system.
Well, it did come through for you here.
Yes, there are bits and pieces like John that exist, but when it comes to the rules of the law, they're made to cover things up.
And how has your life changed today as a result of this accident?
Before the accident, I walked 5 miles a day and did low impact aerobics, and I haven't been able to do that since.
And it's been, what, 5 years since the accident, right?
I have 5 grandkids that now I'm limited in taking care of them. I have a brother who's a quadriplegic that it's harder to be his personal caregiver. Everything.
I want to thank you very much for spending time with us on the show. Your story is remarkable, and I'm glad John was able to get justice for you. We're fortunate enough to have with us today Debbie Malone, who is a key person in your law firm. So let's bring her on right now. It's my great pleasure to introduce Debbie Malone to the show. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
You are the key paralegal at your firm, right?
My right hand.
Right. And
literally.
For our audience, what does it take, you know, to support a very active and a very successful lawyer like John?
A lot of energy.
A lot of energy?
Yeah.
And in a case like this, gathering information, stuff like that?
It was like pulling teeth in
Really?
this.
Are a lot of cases like that?
Cases are, if they're going to litigation, if they do make it to
Yeah.
trial, they are difficult, obviously.
Right.
But this was probably the most difficult case I have worked on. I mean, just the getting the information that was necessary.
You see a lot of trial lawyers. You hear a lot about cases. What do you think of John?
Well, I worked for him, and
Yeah.
I worked for him with him and for him for about 10 years.
Is that
so
right?
that says a lot, I
Yeah,
think.
his clients
But
say a lot.
He is probably the most passionate about his clients of any attorney I've ever known, certainly worked with. Yeah, I mean, he believes in his clients and believes fighting the battle for them. And that's what they hire him to do, is to fight their battles, because in a legal arena, they're not trained for that, and he is. And it's my job to have his back as much as possible,
Well, you
and support him. You know?
You do an outstanding job, and I want to thank both of you for being on the program.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining us. You can get more information about our guest and the issues at insiderexclusive.com.